A little under a year ago, I bought the UK's cheapest running and driving NISSAN 350Z and pretty much did nothing with it in that period of time until recently when we started working on it. We started off by transforming the horrible interior and giving it a new lease of life, and then we moved on to those nasty oxidized headlights, and I'll leave links for both those videos in the description. Then we tackled getting the gearbox off the car, ready to do that oil pan swap. So in today's video, that's exactly what we're gonna do. Let's check it out. To start with this morning, we're gonna have to drop the oil out of the engine, which means taking off the under tray. I've already got the engine supported with the support bar across. What I've done is I've hooked the chains down and under the engine mounts and back up on both sides. Now, I'll show you that when we get under the car. I made a point really of not trapping anything, hoses, pipes, electrical connectors or anything like that, because they're gonna take, them chains are gonna take the weight of the engine when I drop the subframe. So let's go ahead, get under the car, get the under tray off, and then we can start looking at what else needs disconnecting, drop the oil out of the engine. And I'm going to do this by leaving the coolant in the engine. You can take the coolant out, but I'm going to leave the coolant in just to try and make it a little bit easier. Plus, I'm already making a hell of a mess in my driveway, so I could do without making any more of a mess. So let's go get set up, drop the under tray, and then we can get the oil out. And it didn't take very long for the car to start taking the mickey out of me already.
So you notice too, sneaking looks up and down from across the room. And damn, what a hell of a view. I feel good, you look great, I like you, I can't wait.
Plan was going to be to leave the coolant in the car, one less thing to take off, but I can't for the life of me find the bit I need to take the oil filter off, which isn't the end of the world. The other oil pan has got the oil cooler connector on it already, so I'll just reuse that one and put a new seal behind it. So now I'm going to have to drain the coolant out. So yeah, if everything is going much like how taking that under tray went, it's going to be one of them days. It's going to be a case of just disconnecting the coolant hoses up there that go into the cooler itself. But it is what it is, a bit of a pain, but it seems to be the way with this car. And so next up was dropping the coolant and releasing the hard line from the front of the oil pan. And whilst I allowed all that coolant to drain out, I thought it would be a great idea to take off the clutch assembly. So it was the 12 mils holding the pressure plate and the clutch disc in. And then I had access to taking off the T50s that were holding the lightweight flywheel onto the crank. Woo! Now that is a job and a half to get to that point, but now we can see how bad this damaged arm was. You can see it's really nasty, and yeah, you know, look, no leaks. Obviously somebody's done the rear main seal previously. That's not a OEM Nissan part, but it doesn't matter, it's good. There's no oil leaks, there's no issues, so you know, I'm going to leave that one in play. Now it's disconnecting everything else so that we can get that subframe down and we can get that oil pan off, and quite fancy getting out from under this car now. All right, next up under here, Rob, I'll drop link. I'm going to drop the bottom of the suspension strut and take out the 19mm bolt that goes through there into the subframe. That way I can turn this arm completely out the way. So with both lower control arms well out of the way and disconnected from the subframe, I can go ahead and take off the front kidney brace. And I just replaced those two front bolts in, so when I take everything else off, it's not going to drop on my face. Check out how badly corroded that one is. That is absolutely shocking. That's not going back in. Ooh, that one was okay. Perfect. That one is Man, I'm amazed that one didn't snap. Right, now it's the 19s. Yes! We didn't break it and we didn't snap that thread. But there's a load of rust up here. Right, so I've got to get this side off and then I'm going to support it taking it down. So the kidney's out. The kidney itself is actually not pretty, it's not that bad. It's, yeah, it's got some rust spots and stuff, but it's still solid. So I think what I'll find with a good old clean up with a wire disc on, that's okay, that's just surface, but a good old clean up with the wire disc, and then on the drill even, and then a good paint up before it goes back on the car, and that will be fine. God, am I happy them 19 mils didn't snap. I'm well happy. Let's jump under the car quickly and have a look now, and you can see, yeah, those threads are good. The bushes actually look pretty good, so I would say at some point these have been done. Now we've just got these big old buggers holding the power steering, or the power steering rack onto the subframe. Undo all of those, just gently pry that out of the way because I'm not obviously disconnecting all of this. I potentially could do, but I don't really want to because there's a load of hard lines as well, so I'm going to try and keep that as simple as I can for myself. But yeah, so far so good. And I was amazed at how tight the two 17mm bolts were that were holding on the power steering rack. Even the Ugga Dugga was struggling like hell, and I had to go it behind with some WD-40 to help loosen it, but we got there in the end and we managed to pull it out of the way. Just before I go and lower the subframe down, the 4 bolts that hold the subframe, I've got, just to show you where I've attached the chain. So here is the engine mount. The mounting bolt is under there, which has just come out, and this is the engine mount itself. Now I have put, you can probably see it, the chain is just wrapped around the metal part of the engine mount, the same on the passenger side, and then hooked back up above the engine. And you can see I've got it going down this side and this side, making sure not to pinch anything, because the last thing I want to do is pinch any hoses, any cables, anything like that that's going to have the full weight of the engine on it once I lower that subframe. So I've tightened that up. I think I've done it right. I hope I've done it right. Otherwise, having the gearbox fall on my face was going to be the least of my worries, because that's way heavier. I don't know, might be an improvement on my face, but I definitely don't want it to hit my face. So yeah, we'll take that down slowly and just make sure all the way through taking that down that I'm safe, that everything else is held up properly. There's going to be a little bit of shift of the engine, I think, because we're just suspending it in there, but fingers crossed that's all it is, and good to go. So let's crack on. At this point now, I've got everything disconnected from the subframe. What I want to do is get this jack underneath the subframe. Sounds a bit off-putting, doesn't it? And get it in the center, so that when I lower everything down, when I take the bolts out, I know it's not going to go falling straight down onto me. And also I can be careful then, because if I've not supported the engine properly at this point, everything's not just going to sort of collapse and fall through and cause me a world of headaches. So yeah, I'm going to take this one steady and see where we go. Hopefully all comes out okay and should be running nice and smooth in theory. I've managed to take off the lower oil pan and break the seal on that gasket, and everything inside actually looks pretty good and clean inside. Still got a little bit of oil dropping down, but the oil pickup tube here and the filter, if you look in there, can you see a little bit of dirt or debris or something? I'm gonna pull that out and see what it is, but actually other than that, I'm pretty pleased with so far how everything's looking inside. I haven't got to worry so much about this oil pan because this oil pan's not going back on the car, but I'm keen to see, once I've got the oil pan off, what the condition of the bottom end of the engine looks like for 119,000 miles. But so far so good. So after taking that out, it looks like just a little bit of swarf, but where it's from I don't know, but that seems to be the only bit so far, so I'll keep that aside. Hopefully I don't find any more. Yes! Alright, so now that the oil pan is off, I've got a heck of a clean-up job. I've also got to clean up all of the mating surface, get off all of the old gasket, and I've taken out the front seal. I've got to get the rear out, but you know, with the oil pan off and having a good look at the underside of the engine, apart from a little bit of sort of oil staining, which you expect for a 20-year-old car, it actually looks in pretty good condition. I'm quite happy with how far or how well it's looking for its age. So I'm going to go ahead now and get that all cleaned up. I'm not going to record all of that because that's going to be boring as hell just to watch me cleaning off a load of old sealant. But once I'm finished and it's ready to start going back together, I'll check back in with you guys. So I probably spent a good half an hour, 40 minutes cleaning up the mating surface and then refitting the new front and rear crescent shaped gaskets. And then you can see me trying to manipulate my way in to get the oil pan back in. And I'm being really careful here because we've got the gasket maker on there and I didn't want to get it on any of the underparts of the engine. And a little trick that I used was to do a dry run a few times without any gasket on there to make sure I could get it in and get it in place without touching anything, so I knew when I put the gasket on I was safe and I wasn't going to make a mess. I've got it on, I've got it holding. I'm just going to hand tighten all the bolts, which is what it says on the gasket maker, and this is the gasket maker I used. I didn't go for Nissan's own. This one was Euro car parts. I think it's like 15 quid. Okay, so everything's had a good hour to sort of skin up, and it's all seeped out the sides from when we hand tightened it, which is what I wanted to do. So I'm just going to go around the sequence again now at 156 inch-pounds of torque. I believe it is, but I'm going to tighten them all up in the order that it tells me to. So we're going to start off with this one here. Everything is back together. The upper oil pan is now sealed. It's had time to cure. The lower oil pan is now back on. That's sealed as well, and it's had time to cure. Now, before I start putting anything else back together, what I'm going to do is top the oil back up to where it needs to be, and I'm going to check for any leaks. The last thing I want to do is put everything back together only to find that there's a silly leak and everything's got to come back off again. So I'm in the process of doing that now. I've just got another litre to put in, and then I'm going to check everything over. I'm going to start freely turning the engine just so we can start circulating a little bit of that, and then as long as there's no major leaks or any leaks at all, I can start putting everything else back together, starting with the subframe. So I'll go ahead, I'll pop that next litre in, and then give it a good look over. Make sure everything's okay, and fingers crossed we're good to start putting everything back together. But now we're on the homeward journey. Everything is back on, attached to the subframe. I've still got the gearbox, the clutch and everything like that to put back on, but what I wanted to do was show you a good look under the car now, and you can see everything is clean and tidy. There is no oil leaks. I've had a good look around the oil pan itself, and there's nothing seeping out. We've got a really nice good seal. It might be a bit hard to see with the light under here, but we've got a really good seal all the way around now, and that lovely arm, which is exactly why we did the oil pan replacement. I've had a bit of a clean up on the power steering rack as well, just to try and get off all that surface grease, and the same on the subframe itself. Everything's been torqued back down. The lower control arms are back in, which is nice. Now, I have still got to get the clutch assembly back on and the gearbox, which I'm gonna do in another video. I'm not going to bore you guys with that now. That is going to be the end of today's video, but I want to thank you guys so much for sticking around, so much for watching. This was one heck of a video to record, but I wanted to show you guys the process from start to finish. Now, I also want to put a big thank out to Z Speed, or Z Speed if you're American. I watched a bundle of his videos on how he dropped the oil pan on his 350Z. I will leave a link in the description for you guys to go and check it out. But once again, a huge thank you to everybody for watching. Please smash that like button, subscribe to the channel. Let's get this channel to 1,000 subscribers so that we can really start bringing you more and more content. And if you've got any suggestions yourself, any ideas, throw them my way. I would love to hear them, and I will aim to get back to each and every one of you. But for now, thank you for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video.